a more interpersonal reason for you that it became about not just this community of people getting together and feeling connected, but feeling connected and feeling supported through challenging times with mental health?
Yeah, well, like a lot of it is my service in the Defence Force.
Yeah.
If those of you who haven't listened to episode 1, I spent 6.5 years in the Army and went over to Afghanistan a couple of times. I also had some friends unfortunately killed over there. And also and more so people commit suicide on post service.
Alrighty, g'day and welcome back to another episode of A Lot to Talk About. It's your boy, Captain of the Ship, man in charge, Bradley J. Driver, of course, you can call me Brad. And this one is very nostalgic because some of you have been following the show, I know, from day one, which I'm very grateful for. And today we've actually got the first ever guest, the first ever episode of what was once the Bradley J. Driver experience, now A Lot to Talk About. And we've come back to run it back, but really to talk about a whole bunch of new stuff, because what we started to lead towards in that first episode was a business that was building a community, and a community that was building towards something very powerful and very special for a whole lot of people. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So from your home, your car, or wherever you are, give a very warm welcome to the one, the only, Mr. Lachlan Stevens. How are you, mate?
Hey, Brad, how are you, man?
Mate, I'm great. It's so good to be here. It's like we're saying, it's funny. It feels like, I remember listening to that pod. It was February. I listened to it a bit this morning.
Yeah. And
it was Feb 2020. And we're talking about Super Bowl coming up.
Yeah. And that was all cancelled.
It was insane. This is the year before. This is before COVID, bro. This is before
all the
COVID.
Dates blend in for me. It's been one big whirlwind, but so much has happened between then and now.
It's weird to think, because listening to you talk about in that your goals for 2020. Yeah. And then being able to see what you've done in that year. And then, we're walking towards the end of 2021 now. What's been a crazy year for business, but a really, really impressive year, I have to say, for you, not just as a business owner, but as someone who's doing some real good for the community. I want to dive into that. You have something that I believe at the time was called Barstool Blokes, if I remember correctly. It's now the Barstool Brothers.
Yeah, that's correct.
Let's talk about that and what that means.
Yeah, well, way back when we started speaking, I wanted to kind of build a community. It wasn't about building a business. It wasn't about selling burgers. It was about building something a little bit more, just for my own motivation, I guess, most selfishly, but also to get staff to buy into something a little bit bigger. Yeah. Because it's hospitality. If you know hospitality, and we're above Lee and me at the moment, people are leaving in droves, which was amplified through COVID. So it was important for us to build something that people can believe in, not only our staff, but also our customers. And Barstool Brothers does represent that. It also represents something that we can give back to the community and provide for the community. And the importance of it has been demonstrated through COVID, when you have blokes in crisis situations giving you a call saying, this is my darkest day. I'm thinking about committing suicide or harming myself. And you're the person on the end of the line that needs to speak to them, talk them through it, and also get that critical help that they need. So it's absolutely been an amazing journey over the last couple of years, and to sit here and kind of say, well, actually some of the stuff we spoke about in episode 1 has actually it's blown out much higher, and there's much more importance on it than I thought in episode 1 that there would be. So it's been phenomenal. Yeah.
It's incredible to see, and I've really got to commend you, because as someone who knows how special it feels to help other people through tough times, for me it's with CF. I've never been in the mental health space, right? But I know that you get that personal fulfillment, right? But I feel like for everyone, even though how special it's going to be, why you're doing it. There's always a more interpersonal reason. Is there a more interpersonal reason for you that it became about not just this community of people getting together and feeling connected, but feeling connected and feeling supported through challenging times with mental health?
Yeah, well, like a lot of it is my service in the Defence Force.
Yeah.
If those of you who haven't listened to episode 1, I spent 6.5 years in the Army and went over to Afghanistan a couple of times. I also had some friends unfortunately killed over there. And also and more so people commit suicide on post service. So it's intensely personal to me, and that's where I get a lot of motivation, is those people who have been through that struggle and obviously have ended their life. And that's where a lot of motivation to provide a framework for my community, my immediate community now that I've left the Army, because it's not the Army anymore. I stay in contact with a lot of friends, but there's a new community.
Yeah.
And whether you've served overseas or whether you've broken up with your missus, whether you've had a shit time with some personal stuff, whether you lost your job, whatever's going on, there's a space for you to come in Wollongong, and there's a space for you to talk freely about the issues you're having, knowing the person on the other side of the bar or the other side of the table is there to listen and there to support and not there to judge, and knows the right kind of avenues to drive you down if you need that extra help from a clinical perspective. So the Army is the catalyst for my inspiration and motivation to operate in this space.
That's really powerful, and I think we spoke about it. We might have briefly touched on it in the first episode, where I'd been to, at the time, what was Barstool Blokes one Tuesday evening, and I'd actually sat across from a group of guys I didn't know, had no connection with. They were just familiar faces from around Wollongong, and Wollongong's a small town. You see people all the time. You end up sitting down and having a chat eventually in your life. And one of those guys that I sat across, I remember leaving the event that night and thinking, man, I'm going to be really good mates with those two guys, two brothers. And I ended up creating an amazing friendship with them both. And one of them is one of my best mates, Jared Peskard. Till this day. And Jared and I have stayed incredibly connected. And that's
where it started from.
That's where it started from. I didn't know Jared before. I walked in, and my plan on that day was, I'm really privileged that I'm in a great place mentally. If I can come along to this event and maybe someone's there by themselves, I'll go by myself and make sure that nobody felt like it was, intimidating to come and sit down with a group of people. And it just sort of turned out that by the time I got there, everyone was sort of sat down. And Jared seen me walk in. He goes, "Hey, how you going, mate? I'm Jared. I've seen your face around town plenty of times. Why don't you come and sit down with us?" We sat down, had a burger, started chatting, and literally is the creation of an amazing friendship. So
that's awesome.
Like we see each other every week. We speak to each other every couple of days, and that's the power of this sort of thing. And then for me to go on from that event and hear about his personal battle with mental health and depression and bipolar, which he come on the podcast and spoke about. He spoke about that in the infancy of the podcast. It was episode 24. And I guess for me, what's been a real realization is, as I sit here now, I'm privileged to say that, we're well over 100 recorded episodes and, close to 100 guest episodes. I've been lucky to have some people with millions of followers on social and who have incredible audiences. But his story, all the way back at episode 24, is one of the top 2 listens.
Well, and that's authenticity.
100%.
And it doesn't matter how many followers you have. If you've got a powerful story, and it is the power of story. And we're partnered with Mental Health Movement and Dan Hunt, who has done a lot in the mental health space and runs a successful business as well. He talks a lot about the power of story, because that's how you build connection with each other. And fundamentally, that's what Barstool Brothers is all about. It's not a mental health support group, and people don't come down to Hisboy Elroy to talk about their stories necessarily initially. They come down to network, like you did. Come down to network and meet new people. Once they've met new people, once under this umbrella of a safe space, for lack of a better word, then we solidify the relationships by going to trivia, going on morning walks, going to golf, 10-pin bowling, some alcoholic event, some involving alcohol, some not involving alcohol, some involving families, some not involving families. So it gives a diversity of options for them to build and solidify those relationships that they've built at this networking event. And then they may be comfortable talking to each other about their feelings, because blokes are a little bit different. They're wired a little bit different to females, where sometimes it's hard to... You shouldn't be poking and prodding. People clamor up and go into their shell. Let's make it authentic and organic. And it's good to see yourself and Jared's relationship build, because that's a proof of concept. People aren't necessarily going to these meetings or these events and being super depressed. You don't know when you're going to be super depressed. In a couple of weeks, I might feel a little bit down. That's fine. Do I need to go to a Barstool Brothers event? Yes, because I just want to see some friends. So it's not necessarily about going when you need it. It's just getting into that routine, that social routine, and building a community around yourself, because you don't know when you're going to have to lean on them for help, whatever it may be. Might be doing plastering at your house. It might be it might be something a little bit deeper in having those conversations. It might be a HR related issue, like I caught up with Warwick, who owns ADC Locksmith, and he's having some dramas in that space, and he just wanted to talk to me about them. It doesn't have to necessarily be mental health related, but all these things and building this community obviously helps everyone involved in the community.
Well, it's the thing, isn't it? Like, challenge and hardship, whilst at first may not be something that damages or tarnishes your mental health, without nurturing that and understanding it and being able to speak about it, eventually it definitely can. And I guess you've done an incredible job of building that community where hardships and challenges can be spoken about in a comfortable zone, a comfortable area. Was that for you? Was there a realization at some point in time that Barstool Brothers was becoming this place for people who really needed the extra service and the combination with mental health movement? Like, what was the notice point for you where you said, okay, we really need to connect with someone here to make sure we're providing expert help?
Well, the realization came in this most recent lockdown. When we had 4 people contact either myself or other people in the Barstool network at the point of crisis, at their darkest days, and it became clear to us that we have the organisation has developed out of its infancy, and the relationships that we've been fostering are developing into that point, that transition point where we need to have frameworks in place to offer something more. We aren't executing, and that's not our role. If that was our role, I think we'd lose our authenticity, and we wouldn't establish and build those relationships through the networking and the social functions. It'll become a little bit clinical. But we just need to be able to push people or guide people into the right directions for the right support for them. The one way we do that is through mental health movement and the education training. So we provide all our staff mental health first aid training through mental health movement, so they can have those crucial conversations, and we can direct them. We've also got an online kind of training package that is available to anyone for free, that they can log on and they can get that self-help around dealing with anxiety, stress, whatever it is, relationships, substance abuse, and they can go on, and that's a little bit more self-directive. What we're working towards is becoming a not-for-profit, and separating it out from Hisboy Elroy, because in a sense I think it's definitely got it's got potential to be bigger than Hisboy Elroy.
Yeah.
From an impact perspective, like I said, I don't care about selling burgers. That's just a means to fund social endeavours that Selena and I want to do in the future. Money's great, but it's not the catalyst of why I do what I do.
Yeah.
So what our intention is to make Barstool Brothers a not-for-profit, and then provide that training in the mental health space to grassroots sporting clubs in the region, other hospitality businesses, other at-risk organisations and small businesses who can't afford to pay for the training in the mental health space. You shouldn't have to pay for training on learning how to have a crucial conversation with someone in the dire need.
Definitely.
You shouldn't have to pay for that. So it's our intention to provide that service in the future to other people that may not be able to afford it.
That's extremely exciting because you can see how purpose-driven it is for you, and you can see how much of an impact this is going to make for business as a whole around the Illawarra, around the country, and just for the individuals that form under those businesses. And I feel like it's often, for me, it's often a thought that I have where I go, we look at society now in 2021, we're starting to get more comfortable with this conversation, which is really healthy. We're starting to hear of a lot more people who are struggling with their mental health. I don't exactly know how to put my finger on it or to figure out what the answer to my question is, but I guess I'll ask you for your thoughts. Do you think that because it's more common to speak about it now, because we understand the complexity of mental health and the amount of people who are actually struggling with it, that we're now hearing of more people? Or do you think this is something that has become more present and a more present challenge for people because of the way society's changing?
Well, it's a difficult one. It's like the chicken or the egg, but I just think these issues and challenges in whatever form, whether it's coronavirus or domestic violence, these challenges have always been present through society. People just don't know how to talk about it and feel that if they talk about it, it'll be weak.
Yeah.
I think where people like yourself, people like people in the Barstool Brothers, people like Dan Hunt at the mental health movement, and all these other charity organisations in the mental health space are teething it out of society and conditioning society to be able to talk about it a little bit more. Because, geez, if you're not upset and emotionally kind of changed or moved through your experience in coronavirus, there's got to be something wrong with you. If you're breezing through this, my question to you is, how has that not impacted you?
Yeah.
Because the state of the world at the moment, whether it's from a political discourse perspective, whether it's from the Black Lives Matter movement, or whether it's from the anti-vaxxer shit that we see, it's like there is so much struggle in the world. Like we're out the front of a restaurant now. It's 2 weeks into the reopening, and the council decide to do construction on the road, and you can't get into it's difficult to get into the restaurant. That's stressful.
My studio's above here, and I walked in early this morning to get a coffee, and I was like, am I allowed to go in there?
Yeah.
Like they don't make matters easier, do they? And I think you touched on it there. The last 2 years has been potentially two of the toughest years in a very long time for society.
In our lives, definitely in our lives. And like, fortunately, and I'm reflective from the perspective that I went over to Afghanistan and experienced an abnormal situation that people don't usually experience. I searched for improvised explosive devices. It's not that's not a normal situation, but how I use that in this context, it's comparison. And I look back and I'm like, actually, you know what, Lachlan? Don't get nervous about coming on a podcast with Brad. Why get nervous? Because you've just like, you've searched for improvised explosive devices in Afghanistan, you dickhead. Why are you getting nervous about this?
Yeah.
And I've done that with coronavirus, so we can just lean into what we need to do in coronavirus. So building resilience is also important.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the benefits through the last 2 years and the challenges that everyone has faced. It's a universal experience. Is one of the main benefits to come out of this is it offers perspective and resilience to everyone. Your journey over the last couple of years and podcasting, we were talking about it before we went live, is like, that's definitely built resilience in you.
Yeah,
and whatever, you continue to do great things with podcasting, fantastic. If you deviate and go on another path in the future, you're going to be laughing, because those challenges are like that you face in that new role or whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to be a walk in the park, because you know how much of a slog podcasting has been.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? See, we talk about mental health movement. One of the former workers at Mental Health Movement, Brett Cannellan.
Yeah, he was on the show, wasn't he?
He was on the show. He ran a marathon with me on Saturday. Yeah. He's an incredible human being. And, we had a moment at about 33 Ks where my body started to shut down, which was kind of expected just because of my ill health leading into the event. And I was emotional, right? Because probably the most emotional I've been in a long time, because what I started to see was I felt like I was bringing down my mates around me.
Yeah.
Their constant stopping when they looked really good and really fresh was killing me. And I was like, man, I'm bringing people down here because my energy isn't there.
Yeah.
And I'd done a little roll call and had a chat with the boys. We actually got it on, one of the boys filmed it on the bike. And it was really emotional for me. I was choking up. And I actually reverted back to, I watched a bit of SAS recently.
Great show,
right? All about building mental resilience, being a part of a team, taking responsibility, but also understanding you're supposed to be emotional and you're supposed to find those ways to channel that energy and be the best version of yourself. And one thing I learned from watching that show, which I'm sure you would have learned in your time in the military, is they always say, when it comes to a time where you're straggling, don't make your pack suffer for it, right? But then they also say the leader of the pack and the people within that pack should pick you up and make sure they support you, right? And that's one of the lessons. It's almost like a test for everyone else in the pack, right? And I was at a point where I said, boys, I can't let you suffer because of me anymore. You need to go ahead. Like, this is, people say this is Brad's event, but really this event's about everybody who's in it. Like, you've all got your personal struggles. You've all got your things that you've come through the other side of to be here today. I want you to go ahead and finish strong. And all the boys were like, no, we started this together. We finished it together. They picked me back up and we charged towards the finish line. For me, it was a really special moment because the people around you and the circle that you have supporting you through tough times and through challenges can be life-changing.
Yeah, it's that whole adage, you show me your friends, I show you your future.
100%.
If you're hanging around dirtbags, you're going to fucking be a dirtbag. Like,
exactly
and
right.
that's unfortunate. I mentor a few young guys and even through Barstool Brothers, do an audit on your friends. Check in and see kind of, well, actually, who are those people who are dragging me down? And who are those people who are lifting me up, and associate with the ladder, because they're the people that are going to drive you forward. Now, like, it's great to be now in that position where I can look back and lift up people who may be struggling. Yeah. And I have that tolerance and resilience to do that, because from a financial perspective and a career perspective and a mental perspective, I'm in a really good spot. Yeah. And you should always look to lift as many people up in life as possible. But if you're not in the right spot, you can't be lifting people up. And you saw it on the SAS show. You see, they put the weakest people in charge of the team events. Yeah. And the weakest people are they're gassing out and they're blowing smoke, and they're expected to lead and lift the team up. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you get Sammy Burgess, who's been just trotting along, pick up the team because he can.
Yeah.
He's fittest at that moment, and he slips into that natural role of lifting people up. But if you're not in the right spot, that's fine. Rely on your team and your relationships you built with your team to lift you up, because there's going to be a time where you're lifting those people up.
It's, sport's a great analogy for that, isn't it? And I think, and I actually said it to Dad last night because we were watching the civilian one, and I said to Dad, you can see the difference not in everyone, but in leadership when you've got someone who has been through moments as a captain of a sports team, or someone who's led a pack of people towards some sort of successful victory through tough times. You can see the difference in character and strength. But then, they were all rookies once.
Yeah.
You don't walk on for your debut game as captain of the team. Like, that takes time.
Yeah.
It takes time. You need to rely on the strength of the people around you before you can be the leader. And you learn from the people who are in front of you. And I'm so blessed that in my life, I'm surrounded by so many good people. And it's a thing I feel grateful for every day. Like, every time I pursue something, whether it be podcast space, the stuff with cystic fibrosis, any other area of my life, there are so many people that I feel like are lifting me up and pushing me in the right direction. And I'm so grateful for that. And I guess a message to anyone who's watching this or listening to this, if you feel like you're in a great place in your life, take that opportunity, like Lachie said, to lift others up, because there's nothing like it. There's no feeling like it. And for me, I love doing this, but there's something special about when I get to do that marathon every year, that I know there's a bunch of kids with CF who aren't healthy enough to be out there and only wish they could be.
Yeah.
Like my mate Joe Plum said it beautifully on the weekend. He said, we've chosen this struggle today. There's some people who struggle and it's not their choice. So let's appreciate every moment of the pain. And I think it's so true. So it's really special, and I can't commend you enough for building a community and building something at Barstool Brothers that is so powerful, and allowing other people to see that within themselves, get through tough times, and eventually become those leaders that will lift those who were once in their shoes.
Absolutely. I don't know if you saw it, a Barstool Brothers, Paul. He and he wouldn't mind me sharing this story because he's gone on to share it himself in the media. But he was on Fairy Meadow Beach, and he tried an attempt on his life, and woke up with some issues about being unconscious for so long, and he went through a rough patch and found Barstool Brothers. And it wasn't the traditional support clinical field group. At trivia, we're having beers and burgers at Hisboy, and he found a community. And he found a community of blokes who could help him out when he was in his darkest days, and who wanted to help him out. And he's come alive. He's now been doing peer-to-peer support. He's got himself a house. He's got himself a missus. It's an amazing story of an amazing person who has shown resilience, and also a willingness to try and to get better, because we've just put in the framework for him to achieve his goals, or to help him achieve his goals. He's executed. But it gives a lot of satisfaction to myself, and I know a lot of the other Barstool Brothers, knowing that we're a part of that journey. And that you said it as well, but that's that helper's high you get. It's like a drug.
It is.
It releases those endorphins that you get when you work out, for example. Yeah. Those feel-good endorphins where you're happy to help people out. It is draining at a point too, just like working out. You do get tired, but you need to kind of think about who helps the helper, and also maintain kind of life outside of what your help that you're providing other people as well.
We spoke about it a little bit on the last podcast, and you spoke about how you felt grateful that you were able to stay in a good place mentally post-military. Obviously, hearing these stories now and being a big part of that journey, like you said, you got to remember sometimes helpers need to help the helpers.
Yeah.
How's it been for you to manage your own mental health? And has there been anchors within your day, your week, your life that have been a really good way to cement good mental health within you?
I picture like, and it's probably not best practice, but I always use the analogy. I'm like a duck on a pond. My legs are fucking going crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm just floating along on the surface. So from an outsider's perspective, it might make it look like I'm quite relaxed and easygoing, but my mind or I'm always got something at play. It's hard for me to switch off, and that's not bad. That is, it helps me.
Yeah.
Helps me drive business objectives through Hisboy Elroy. We never stop. It helps me. It can be detrimental to relationships as well. But it's about having that acknowledgement that I am wired that way and setting aside some time in my week to just actually switch off and get rid of devices. Associate with some friends that, like, there is no kind of talk about work or Barstool Brothers. Spend time with Selena, my wife, go for a walk by myself even, and just knowing how to kind of top up my cup, my emotional cup again. Yeah. So then I can spend the next week kind of emptying that cup and topping it back up. Yeah.
It's so important, isn't it? Like, I found for me, going into the COVID lockdowns, which is, like 16, 17 weeks ago now, almost having all that free time where I was like, I'm not coming in the studio anymore. I'm now sitting. I'm not organising podcasts. I don't have any other things to focus on. What am I going to do? I was like, well, I need to self-reflect because I started to realise that spending a bit of time by myself, I wasn't exactly happy with my direction. Like, I felt purpose-driven towards what I was doing, but I wasn't exactly sure I was in the right vehicle to get there. And I had to sit and self-reflect, and it brought up for me a lot of awareness around the areas in my life I was going wrong, the places and times in my life where I'm at my best, and why I need to be working those things and those habits that are a part of my life when I'm at my best mentally and physically and in all other areas. I need to be working those back into my routine again. For me, it was keeping fit and healthy. For me, it's a big part of feeling great and having great energy. And I noticed an incredible difference between the days where I get up early and I go for a walk or a run and jump in the ocean and get that little bit of time away from my screen and my phone, to the days where I don't, where I feel really flat and tired and almost cranky and irritable.
I've done the same thing with my job. You audit your life, and that's what you're talking about. It's like, well, what works for me? What's bringing me down? What's building me back up? And with Hisboy in particular, I realised like I love being in there in the environment, but I'm not pouring beers. I don't want to pour beers. Yeah. I need to rely on my leadership. I enjoy leadership. I enjoy coaching and mentoring and guiding and creative thinking. I need to build a role for myself around that. And that's where my strengths is, because that's where my passion is. Yeah. For everything else, I need to build and rely on my team to fill those gaps. And they have strengths and weaknesses. They have things that they don't like coming into work and doing. And it's not about passing the buck, but it's about filling those voids with their stuff. Yeah. And we're lucky at Hisboy Elroy, we've got an organisation that has a little bit of meat on the bone, and we can plug that with the team. Yeah. But what it's created, and by focusing on our strengths, rather than working on our weaknesses, we need to have an awareness of our weaknesses. Yep. But we can't spend too much time on them. I can't spend too much time on a sous chef's weaknesses and building them up, because they're likely been weaknesses for 26 years of their life. Yeah. I'm not going to plug them in the year, 2 years, 3 years that we have them on board. Yeah. I'm going to focus on their strengths. I'm going to do my best to plug the gaps and build that organisation like that. So I've done that personally. I've done it from a Hisboy's perspective, but now I'm kind of like, since we last spoke, I'm in such a better space in terms of the efficiency within my life in general, and also the organisation.
Yeah, and it's funny because, like you said, I've been able to observe it through social and through bumping into you around town and coming into Hisboy, and I know you said like a duck where you're kicking your feet under the water, but you're just floating above the surface. I look at you and I think, for all he's doing, it looks very calm. And that obviously comes down to good leadership and good management. Yeah. But at the same time, I can imagine there's a million things ticking over in your head all the time. Can we talk about some of those challenges in the last sort of like year and a half, 2 years, and also just some of the funny moments and the moments of realisation that have come out of Barstool Brothers, and like just almost like a highlight reel, really?
Yeah. So I guess like it's been an amazing kind of 2 years. We like coronavirus obviously hit, and I thought back to my time in the military actually, and in those real kind of unpredictable, intense situations of stress and anxiety and uncertainty, and what made someone good and what made someone bad. It's that fight or flight response. And we didn't want to have a flight response. We wanted to have a fight response. And we analysed the situation at hand going into lockdown. We obviously looked at what was happening in at that stage. It was New York and London, and how the business response and the pandemic response was to that, and what was the new world going to look like, and then we built out a business operation model to suit that. We also thought about actually what does being in lockdown mean for people, like and their mental health.
Yeah.
How can we use Hisboy Elroy and running deliveries out to these people and connecting with them, and providing them free burgers, for example, but also and more so a chance to connect with people in an unconnected world. And I think whenever there's challenges, there's also opportunities to set yourself apart of the pack.
Yeah.
And you notice that in war as well, in that heat of the battle, you notice the people who stand out, and that recognition and acknowledgement mightn't be noticed straight after the event, but it might not be noticed a couple of years down the track in the form of someone getting a Victoria's Cross or a Medal of Gallantry. It's a recognition of what they did in that moment of crisis. They had some clarity and they were able to objectively and just formulate a plan and just go with their gut. And I think we did a good job of doing that, and just using coronavirus as an opportunity to challenge and stress test the business.
Yep.
Looking where the gaps in our operation were and plugging them. For example, table ordering, which we've now implemented, and it's all digital, so we're collecting people's data as well, and that obviously has a flow-on effect from a marketing perspective. We're also collecting data on what popular meals are and whatnot, and also we've got a tip function now, and it's an optional tip function, and we're like, oh, actually, do you know what? Like, how are we best going to use this tip function? Because we can switch it on and off. But let's switch it on. Ask staff if it's all right to redirect all tips to Barstool Brothers. And all of a sudden, we're making $1,000 in tips, and we've got a passive fundraising effort for Barstool Brothers. And that was important to us as well, because we don't want to be one of these charities that are just putting our hands out for money and making that our primary objective our primary objectives are the outcomes of the members, the individuals. It can't be raising money, and we can't be worried about that. But let's lean on Hisboy Elroy and our customer base and their generosity to fund a not-for-profit. Yeah. So that's what we're kind of working towards, and that's what coronavirus, the last couple of months have really lent itself towards, is challenging what we're doing, thinking about what we're going to do, and how can we use the current situation to get us there. And to be honest, I think kind of we're in a good spot, and both from Hisboy Elroy's perspective and also Barstool Brothers' perspective, and I look forward to catching up with you in another couple of years and talking about kind of some of the stuff and reflecting on some of the stuff that we've spoken about today, and saying actually we achieved that and a little bit more.
It's really exciting, and I want to quickly go back to what you said there about the way that you responded to COVID. I was really impressed, and I think I said this to you in person when I seen you throughout the little break that we had in lockdowns, which feels like a lifetime ago. And the thing for me was we're speaking about leadership a lot in today's episode. You almost led for the hospitality industry as a whole in Wollongong, and there was almost this selflessness. Well, there was this selflessness where Hisboy kind of like charged forward for everyone and gave everyone a path to see an opportunity to continue. You were speaking to members of parliament, you were in the media, you were looking at alternate ways to continue to run a business, and you thrived because of it. And a couple of people really suffered, and probably more than a couple, a whole lot of the industry really suffered. And whilst you weren't able to move at maximum capacity, and there would have been those hardships for you as a business too, it was really impressive to watch the way that you were able to respond and unite the community together off the back of it.
Yeah, well, we had, I'm pretty good at understanding how people think, not what they're saying on Facebook or Instagram, but how they're actually thinking, and it can be completely different. And we wanted, what you see on social media, I fucking hate social media. I love it, but I hate it because I love it because it drives business. It allows us to communicate, but I hate it because of all the negativity. And what we didn't want to do and be as a business, but as individuals, was victims. And because everyone in this situation, it's a global fucking pandemic, everyone's a victim. Everyone's affected in some way or another at a varying degree. We need to be positive, and in everything we do, we need to be positive, forward-facing, and on the front foot. Whether it's being a part of the New South Wales Business Commissioners Reference Group, which advises policy on how government should handle the economic response. From a small business perspective, whether it's the stuff we do with Barstool Brothers, or whether it's being in the media and talking about Dine and Discover and those other incentives. It's important, and it was really important for myself and Selena to make sure that we're leading the community, because the community is our central value in our business. And if we sat on our hands and didn't lead the community, then we're not living up to our responsibility as members within the community and our position within the community. So that is why we did it. And also we know that we can get that there's added benefit of being that person that steps out in front.
Yeah,
you're going to get you potentially put yourself out there and get ridiculed, or there could be criticism and shade thrown your way.
Yeah.
But also, if you break through all that noise, that social media noise, the haters, if you break through that, it's glorious on the other side. We know that we can go into things in the future knowing that, hey, actually we put our money where our mouths are. We aren't just one of these businesses that say support local because they want support from the local community. Hang on, man. what have you fucking done for the local community? How have you supported your community? Tell me that. You're asking for support, but I'm not going to give it to you unless you give something to the community. Do you know what I mean?
100%. It's something that was obvious to me watching you guys respond to all of this it's that old adage, right, that like you feed your own first, right? But you guys flipped that on its head and you went, well, throughout a time where revenue can be down, it can be hard for us to get business in, we're actually going to give away more. We're actually going to support the local community. And in turn, for me as a consumer who doesn't own a business in that space, I look at that and I go, well, I know where I'm going as soon as things open back up again. And I know who I want to support. And I know what I want to do as my part as someone who can help now boost the local economy as a consumer, as a citizen of Wollongong, because they done the right thing by us.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important.
And that was amazing at the start of this lockdown. So 16 weeks ago, we had a guy who is a customer. He owns Ballers Sports Bar in Fremantle and over in Perth. And he saw what was happening and he said, oh, guys, I'm going to give you $500 to give burgers out to hospitality workers. Like, thank you, man. Like, he's like, I just was so taken back with the work that you're doing from a Barstool Brothers perspective when he came over and he was doing research on other sports bars, and your attitude, your customer service, and I felt kind of obliged to help you guys out in your time of need, and your community, because we know we communicate to our customers about the importance of community. He gave $500 and we put up a social post and we noticed that it went quite well because it wasn't negative, it was positive. And people respond to that, believe it or not, on social media. We then said, okay, well, like, actually we pay thousands of dollars to our suppliers. They surely can give us a $500 credit on our account, so we can build this fund back up, because that $500 went in a day. And we reached out to a couple of suppliers and we shouted out about their generosity when they were all willing to donate money to this cause. And then people saw that. And then we had individuals and other businesses reaching out. And all of a sudden, at the end of the 16-week period, we've given away $30,000 worth of burgers to...
That's incredible.
Yeah, to nurses who have been doing it tough on the front line, to hairdressers who have been shut down, to hospitality workers, to Barstool Brothers, to a whole heap of tradies, and all of a sudden we've infiltrated, from a strategic business perspective, we've infiltrated sub-communities within our wider community and made an authentic connection with them. So then, like you said, you're more likely to come back and support when we open back up. But we've also leveraged off the goodwill of our existing community, because they are compelled to support us and our endeavours in what we do from a social enterprise perspective, because they know it's authentic, because we've got Barstool Brothers in place and we put our money where our mouth is, and we always advocate for our community. So that's why it works so well. Definitely.
I want to have a little bit of a bit of banter back and forth at the end of this podcast and talk about a few things that are happening in the world of food and business and hospitality in particular. But before we do, I want to make sure that whilst we're having this really relevant and important chat, that everyone listening or watching this knows how they can become a part of that community, or how they can do their part to help that community. So is there a way where it's easiest for people to connect with Barstool Brothers?
Yeah, so we've got two things up and running at the moment. We've got Barstool Brothers, so log on to Facebook and search the Barstool Brothers. It's a private group. There's also links on Hisboy Elroy's pages, and you can join that, and there's information posted about events. For example, trivia tonight at the Illawarra, or bowling next Tuesday night down at Albion Park, or our regular catch up every second Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. where people can just come down and socialise. They can get a free burger, beer and fries. They also have the opportunity to pay it forward. And if you pay it forward, you get a little card and you have the opportunity to then go and give that card to someone you might think that needs it. And therefore it compounds our community. And also it's a non-verbal cue that a bloke can give to another bloke and say, come down for a burger and a beer.
Yeah.
I know there's something wrong, but they don't need to say that.
Yeah.
How are you?
It's that soft invitation.
Yeah. It's come down to Hisboy for a burger and beer, but more importantly, we're going to have a chat. So that's how you can get involved with the Barstool Brothers. We also run a pay it forward program now, so you can log on to the website, and if you want a free meal delivered any day, you can log on. And you don't have to be a Barstool Brother. You can be anyone, just someone in hardship. You can log on and get a free burger delivered. Well, you can get whatever you want delivered. You can also log on and pay it forward as well. And that's been really helpful with this whole inclusion piece around or discrimination piece around people who aren't vaccinated and their inability to go out and socialise and enjoy coming down to Hisboy Elroy or wherever it is. We put that in place so they can feel included and they can get a free feed if they want, and we can come out and visit them as well. And the community of people who are out and about can also log on and pay for a free feed. Yeah. Because there's so much hate and division. We're like, nah, actually, you know what? I think it's all manufactured online and it's all inflated online. I think people are actually genuinely good.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And you've got to believe that.
Yeah.
You know, as someone who believes in humanity, you've got to believe that we're all good inside. And sometimes through challenging times, just judgment gets clouded. People get angry and aggressive and a little bit confused and upset by what's happening in the world. And at the core of it, we're all connected. We're all human. We just need to get back to that. And for me, it's been noticeable in the last 2 weeks in particular. As things have opened back up, there just feels like there's a little spring in everyone's step.
That's it.
People are walking around with smiles on their faces again. I really hope that for the whole of New South Wales, Victoria, Australia, and everyone who's done it tough throughout this period and really around the world, because like you said, this is a global pandemic. I really hope that we get back to just being human beings and connecting and, remove that division.
And also, I noticed when I got back from Afghan in 2010, everything in life felt like a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah. And I'm hoping once this pandemic we start to kind of treat it as the new normal, and society kind of gets back on track. I hope people kind of takes it easy a little bit, and approaches life with not taking things so serious. And not with this freaking fake outrage. I think and you see it online a lot. I think kind of it's a good opportunity for us to kind of reset in a way, and just have a fresher approach and outlook on kind of situations in life, and appreciate the connection we have with each other and friendships and relationships as well.
Definitely. You know, something that's been, and I guess this might be a nice note to sort of finish this serious part of the conversation on, is for me, there was a real realisation. I wrote about it in a post on Instagram yesterday. For me, my event started, 42 for CF, started as a marathon for cystic fibrosis, to prove that people with cystic fibrosis, to prove that anything is possible if you believe in yourself, but more importantly, that when life throws a challenge at you, if you weather the storm, you'll be able to get back up and go again. And that was really important to me in the first year. And in this second year, what I learned was, for all of the challenges I overcame in the first year, this year I was provided with even bigger ones.
Yeah.
And I was like, far out. I went from not being able to run 5Ks to running a marathon. And I thought all my challenges were there and gone. But now I'm getting hit with bigger challenges. And this is tough again. But for me, what it taught me was really the meaning of my whole event and the meaning of life is you are 100% going to get knocked on your ass at some point in time. No one's lucky enough to miss that. Whether it be mental health, other health struggles, or whether it be business or career struggles, or the struggle to find purpose or something of meaning in your life, you're going to get knocked on your ass. But as that old cliche saying goes, like, that's what makes you stronger. That's what makes you who you are, and it builds resilience and it builds character. And I really hope, like you said, that through these struggles of the past 2 years, there's this character and resilience now where there are going to be tough times ahead, but we've built this connection as community and as human beings where we can move through this together and be strong for each other. So I'm really excited for the next couple of months and years ahead, and hopefully we've learned something from this 2-year period.
Yeah, I'm sure we have, but I think kind of like the character and the resilience piece is key, and hopefully people and politicians don't steer us into a discourse which is negative and hate-filled, because I think we've had enough of all that.
Definitely. A little bit of fun conversation and banter, and to sort of change topic a little bit to finish off here. Have you been to America?
Yes.
Okay, have you tested the big burger joints? You like that? Do you see that test on YouTube and on social all the time? It's like In-N-Out, Shake Shack, In-N-Out, Shake Shack, Five Guys, Whataburger. Like, there's those big chains. Have you been to any of those?
Yeah. I've been to all of them actually. None of them really stood out. I like Wahlburger. Apparently, they're coming to Australia as well. Okay. A Mark Wahlberg's burger joint.
Yep.
I like, just on a side note, he's a really interesting character to get into, and his kind of hustle as well. It's unbelievable. Him and who's that comedian? It escapes me at the moment.
Where would I know him from?
He's the Rock's mate.
Kevin Hart.
Yeah. Kevin Hart is a hustler.
His story's incredible. Have you watched his doco series on Netflix?
Yeah, it's phenomenal.
Incredible.
Yeah, it's a great peek to kind of what makes someone successful. And Mark Wahlberg's the same. So yeah, I'm looking forward to his burger place coming. But I heard Five Guys opened up in Penrith.
I've heard really
they're getting fucking grilled. The prices are a little bit off, I think.
A mate of mine who actually does podcasts, I've been on his show, Nick Batar. He's from that way, and he's from the Blue Mountains, and Nick and his missus went and tested it, and they were like $70 for like 2 burgers, chips and drinks, and I was like, what is going on there?
Well, and like Hisboy's burgers aren't the cheapest. For a burger and chips, it's $19, for example. But also, like, we balance it off by saying, actually, like, by you paying this $19, this is what you're getting from a customer service perspective, an experience perspective, what we do in a community perspective. This allows everything to happen, and people are happy to pay that because there's value for them.
But I feel like anywhere you go now, right, like $20 for a meal, which is as tasty as a Hisboy burger is, as filling as a Hisboy burger is, in that environment is really reasonable.
100%.
But like, to pay $70 for 2 is insane. I'm like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and it's a fucking takeaway store.
Have you ever thought about, like, you look at those chains, the reason I asked about those chains is, have you ever thought about Hisboy being more than the one shop? I know you've tested locations and done stuff in other areas before. Are there any of those plans in the future that you're allowed to reveal?
No, there's like, in all honesty, if we opened up multiple locations, we would be fucking selling out. Like, everything we preach is around community and authenticity. When you start to duplicate your product, you lose authenticity.
Yep.
You lose control. I can't be in two places. Chinny can't be in two places, or Mo, our head chef. So you lose authenticity and control over your product and your brand. And you put it in someone else's hands, and they might have the right intentions, but they don't know how to execute at that deeper level, that community level. So we wouldn't look to open up another location under any circumstance. We would look at alternate products like. We're heavily into that beer scene, the craft beer scene. So, if it was a brewery, maybe that would be something else where we can not duplicate, but we can create something new. And also have that connection between the two. Makes sense. For our brand. And we've got a food truck coming as well, so
that's exciting.
We can pop up around, and we'll be doing a whole big community piece on how we use the food truck, but we'll be popping up whether it's in Shell Harbour or up in Bulli,
that's
where
great.
we're both tested down at Resin. That's the extent of it, I think.
That's really exciting. Obviously, we spoke about before we hit record here today, Dave Portnoy, what he's done at Barstool Sports. The way that I knew Dave Portnoy was watching his pizza reviews.
Yeah, phenomenal.
Phenomenal. Yeah. And then I learned that this guy's actually the founder of a company that's now worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But I love those pizza reviews. And even as someone who is a world away from the US right now, I'm fascinated by what the best pizza joint in the US is. Have you got, like, for you, what are like your go-tos? Like, not night out, you and Selena are just going to get some food, some grub. Let's say it's pizza. What's the go-to? If it's a burger, obviously you guys are the go-to, but like those other meals, say it was like a fast food, like a Macca's, KFC, like drive-through situation. What are your go-tos?
So from a fast food perspective, it's KFC, Wicked Wings, in a regular combo with extra chicken salt on the chips and a Pepsi. Fucking smash that down, man. From a pizza perspective, we like, again, I'm not bullshitting, but we are like passionate about supporting local. Passionate. So we don't try not to order off Uber Eats or Deliveroo and those delivery apps. And we try and support those local businesses by going in there and saying g'day. But we love the pizza down at North Pav, which on Balm they were closed through
Very
lockdown.
Good,
The kiosk was open through lockdown, but the restaurant was closed.
No, it's not. It's, you know what's crazy is, for me, watching the places that closed down, I was devastated because there were so many good ones. But like you said, we've almost like forgotten that you can actually order and get delivery from most restaurants not on an app. Like it's almost remarkable how the marketing power of these products like Uber Eats, Deliveroo, Menulog, there's a new one every week, DoorDash. You almost forget that you can actually order from places. So that's a message to people, like, to support local. Just like ring up and ask first.
It's 30%, man. 30%.
That's huge.
On when we first went into lockdown and our kitchen was cranking. 30%, with 90% of all orders going through those applications is $10,000 a week we're paying in commission to them. Fucking did my head in. I went out and bought a van and we launched our own in-house delivery model.
Makes sense.
But there's like we've got that luxury of being high volume restaurants, so we can challenge the status quo. There's a lot of restaurants that they can't afford the delivery infrastructure, the staffing, the van to do their own deliveries. So sometimes it's a necessary evil to support them through there. But if you're double vaxxed and if you got a car and got transport to get to that venue to pick up the food, spend a little bit of extra time. But it is convenient having the apps. It is.
But you also, I feel like sometimes it takes up bloody long anyways. I remember one night we were in the studio here and it was like we're doing like a couple of the boys, we called it Fire in the Booth. It lasted for an episode. It was popular. It was just manic, trying to get four blokes not talking over each other in an episode. And two of the boys ordered, I can't even remember which site, it might have been Menu Log. And it's the one that Snoop Dogg's in.
Menu Log.
Yeah. They ordered some food here mid-podcast because they hadn't eaten dinner. It's like 8 o'clock at night. And literally, it just never came. They never heard anything, never got... And I'm like, they were waiting until like 10 o'clock that night.
Menu Log cancel our orders. Deliveroo turn our restaurant off when there's too much load on the driver or courier network. It's a fucking shit show. There is actually a business opportunity in this whole delivery space if people go in there without profits in mind, I think. And I think I actually had a chat with a software engineer yesterday. Super smart guy, young guy, ambitious. He obviously identifies an issue as a consumer. Food's rocking up late. Drivers don't care. Sometimes they're taking 3 or 4 meals at once, and your meal that they have might be the last meal they deliver, so it's cold. There's an opportunity there. It just would take the right type of people to exploit that. Yeah,
definitely. Last question I'm going to ask you, which is incredibly important question, maybe the most important thing that we speak about ever on the podcast. The age-old debate that got a lot of media and hype at Hisboy. The perfect chip.
It's got to be thick cut. It like we copped a lot of flack. Oh my god. No, actually, like people, it summarizes social media in a nutshell. There's so much outrage when we move to thick cut away from skinny fries. The reason we do is they hold their heat better. It's better for delivery. We're in this age of lockdown.
Yeah.
It's better for delivery, and it holds its heat and crisp better than shoestring. There was so much fake outrage. Do you know what? We don't get anyone asking about it in store. Yeah. We don't. Our Google rating last year was 4.81 stars out of 5. Like 3 years ago, it was 4.2 stars. Actually, does that mean the food quality's gone up?
Yeah.
I'm on thick cut
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm like, there's nothing better than when you get a nice thick cut chip. It's got that little bit of crisp on the outside, but it's actually got some chip in it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you go to Macca's and I'm like, I'm just literally eating deep fried air.
I do like thin cut. Don't get me wrong. I actually enjoy eating them better.
Really?
But there is something in the psyche of people when they get thick cuts, and with a burger, there's better value for money because it fills you up a little bit more. There is better value for money, and that's why we've seen an increase in our Google star rating.
It also holds more seasoning and salt on the surface. Yeah. So I'm like, makes sense to me.
Yeah, analysing the chips.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, I want to say thank you so much for coming in. We've been going for a minute now. Obviously, a real pleasure to have you back in the studio. Very nostalgic for me doing this. To go, wow, like that was all the way back at episode 1, and to think that we're here now, new location.
Look how far we've come.
It's really exciting, but also there's a lot of pride for me as a local resident to be able to see what you've done with Hisboy, the community you've created with the Barstool Brothers, and I'm very excited for the future of everything you're doing. You and Selena, and I take my hat off to you both and the team that you've built there, because it's really impressive.
Cheers, man.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, comment, send it to your mum, send it to your friend, do all those things to make sure this show grows. We love producing content for you guys, having these guest interviews, the weekly sports shows, Bloke and Their Balls. Make sure you get onto that, as well as the show with my sister every week where we talk about a whole heap of funny stories and segments called Braddles and Sissies. That's it from me today. Catch up with you guys soon.
Thanks, guys.